Nigerian startups dominated the recent Techstars Toronto 2022 winter cohort. Out of the 12 startups selected for the Techstars Toronto 2022 winter cohort, 8 are Nigerian tech startups according to the Global Accelerators Directory. Aside from these startups, there is a Kenyan startup in the cohort. So beyond assistance from accelerator programs, how can Africa's tech startups scale appropriately across their respective countries and the continent? Joining us now from Abuja studios to discuss this a bit further is Thompson, a partner at startup launch code, a growth-focused agency for early-stage startups. It's good to have you on the show this morning, sir. Thanks for coming through. What do you make of the plethora of Nigerian startups, the huge number selected at the Toronto event?
Yeah, so I think it's a positive move for these companies and what it means to Nigeria at large. And I think the selection for 2 of the founders, which I know personally, I know what they're building and the kind of traction that they have so far. So I'm definitely positive that what they're building is something that is scalable, that is going to also impact the economic landscape and do so much more and inspire others to actually come in on the scene too.
Well, over 48% of Techstars investment in Africa have been targeted towards Nigerian startups. What's the attraction for them in Nigerian space?
Awesome. So like if you look into, when it comes to, in the startup community, the very first thing we need to look at is the size of the market. Now, Nigeria has a population of over 200 million people. And with that number, that is also estimated to grow to, Nigeria is going to be like the 3rd largest population by 2050. And so looking at these companies that are, and where they are playing to, you can see the opportunity that they're going to capitalize on as the population continues to grow. Secondly, also, there are the problems that exist currently in the landscape, because the problems are the opportunity. And so there's more opportunity in Nigeria than anywhere else because of the challenges that are currently faced. And so investors know that in a growing market is where you can actually, even exit better. And so that's why a lot of them are looking to, Nigerian startups in particular, because of the opportunity in that space and how large the market is.
Well, you run a growth-focused agency for early-stage startups. What does a tech startup need to show, what they need to put on the table to show you that you can assist them in their growth? What needs to be placed on the table? Tell me.
Sure. So one of the things that we kind of look out for, which is in line with what I said previously about the market, what market are you going for, right? Then who are the consumers? What is the consumer behavior in that particular space? Who are the other competitors in the space? What are they offering? Then what makes you different? So we kind of define what makes you different first, and then find the perfect fit. Who are the customers you want to engage? Then we can bring that together easily with very compelling marketing message that gives you attention and even much more traction. So these are the things that we actually look out for winning startups.
But it looks like almost everyone wants to do something in the fintech space. So I keep asking myself, as a financial person, I'm less of a tech. I'm trying to marry the two together. Why is fintech? Is it because there is money? And fintech has to do with cash, there is money, there is central bank, there is FX, there is whatever other currency. Is that the attraction? Okay.
Yes, but there's also more to that. So like I said, everything boils down to the numbers, right? So the informal sector of the Nigerian economy is very lucrative, but there's little or no data to support that. So in terms of addressing that need, fintech goes first. Like with anything, if you follow the money, you are able to see the value that is being created and dispensed by the 2 parties involved. And so fintech there's a lot of drive for financial inclusion for people that are not banked. And so that is why fintech is a big deal, because the more people that come on platforms, in terms of processing payment, the more we get the informal sector to actually come to a place where it can actually contribute to the GDP of the country. So fintech is definitely the front forerunner in that space currently. Aside that, yes, it has to do with money.
So what about accelerator programs like Techstars and Y Combinator, all in a startup needs in order to scale your operations?
They are good, but it's not all you need. So there is also like the team, there's the culture. There are also circumstances in the marketplace that are outside of the control of many of the businesses. And so from time to time, you may have to pivot. So like, let me give, for instance, COVID-19 came on the scene. Nobody planned for that. So as a company, to be really successful, you have to have a strategy, a pivot strategy to keep you relevant, keep you still in the game, to still like scale and grow. So this accelerator program just provide the support, provide insight into how you should go about your business, but that is not just all that is required. There has to be real customers that you're serving in the marketplace to keep you like in the game long enough, basically.
So, and I asked this question about my guest earlier, who spoke before you from our studio in Lagos, about how much patience that you need as a startup through the growth phase before you can just talk about scaling up.
Okay, so I think patience is a very, very important virtue when you're building a company. And there's what we call like finding product market fit. So product market fit is you have the product and you want to, pitch it to a particular segment of the market. And until there is a good match, you can't really scale effectively. So we all know for every existing market, there is demand and supply, right? So you have the product you want to push to the marketplace. How well is the customer or the consumers or the marketplace ready to patronize that product? So until you find that fit, then you can begin to discuss. So sometimes it could take, 1 month, 2 months, 5 years, whatever it is. But once you find that, then you can begin to discuss, scaling. And so that is a really defining factor. And some companies find it early and scale. Some companies stay longer. But the most important thing is finding it. And when you find it, then you can scale effectively.
But now, so I've gone to that initial level and I want to scale up. What are the hurdles for African tech startups? Is it funding? Is it the market, as you put it? Is it the customer base or the clientele? Is it the team? What is it?
So they are all of that. But one I would really pull out, which is there is very little infrastructure in terms of like support for many of the companies. So if you look at like the companies in Nigeria, if you took them to another environment where there was more like an enabling space, they probably would do much more better. So as a startup, you also have to consider like setting up like basic infrastructure, which should not have been the case, if that was possible. But you have to focus on that and build that up before you can even think of doing other things. So there's also the team side. The team needs to see the vision. There's the culture within the company, because startups are geared for fast growth. Right? So to traditional business, it's okay to stay 20 years and still be on a particular level. But in startup, you're geared towards going big. Like if you look at Flutterwave, what they've done in like 5 years, their valuation is where it is right now. So bringing it down to, as a startup, there's so many moving parts. There's the team, there's the market, there's also the competition you have to deal with. There's so many things you have to look at, but most importantly, there has to be infrastructure to help you build, And I'm just going to use this for example. Like if you look at in the US, for instance, with companies like Google. Google has like Google Map, and on top of that is they have their API, which companies like Uber, Airbnb are leveraging. So they've created an infrastructure that other companies can leverage and also scale. So we're looking at that, coming into play currently in Nigeria, and which is still it's still in its early stage, but there's so much opportunity based on that, and that is also could pose a threat to many of the companies too as well.
So President Buhari recently signed the Startup Act. So is that all that you folks need in your sector to move to the next level?
So with respect to the act, what it is, it's a big win for the startup ecosystem here in Nigeria. And what that really means is that startups are going to be given like what I'll call like a sandbox where they can effectively roll out their ideas without too much like regulatory restrictions that, you know, kind of inhibit innovation. And so it's still evolving as we go on, and we're looking for more opportunities, more founders to come in on the scene based on that act. And I think it's going to be a game changer across the board for all industries, particularly in Nigeria.
Is it easier to scale if you're in the payment space as opposed to another phase like perhaps in logistics, agri-tech, or educational technology space? So I go back to that fintech. Is it about payment system because money flows?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And so fintech is very important in the context that whether you're in agri-tech, logistics, whatever it is, you need to collect payments, right? So that is a critical factor of the service you're offering. You're offering the service, how do you get, you know, financial return from that? And that's where fintech comes in. But across the board, it still comes back to product market fit. If there is really a need in marketplace and there is growth opportunity in that space, you can definitely scale, right? So I've met founders that are building, you know, things in the agri-tech space, logistics, that are also scalable, you know. But the buzz right now is around fintech, and, you know, that space is really crowded. So if you come out with a fintech product, there has to be something unique about it. Your unique value proposition has to be strong as compared to the other, you know, players in this space too as well. But you can scale across the board in all industries. Once there are real needs in the marketplace that you are addressing, then you're good.
Oh, it's very interesting. You touched a bit earlier when we asked the question about the Startup Act that President Buhari signed, and that was said that could be a game changer. But the back of it is the whole infrastructure deficit. How does that come into play? I spoke earlier, and my guest says, well, you need internet connection. What type of infrastructure does tech startups in Nigeria need to deal with first?
So like, well, good thing is like after COVID, a lot of the companies are going remote, and internet access to is also increasing. And, you know, coming from COVID, smartphone penetration rates, internet penetration rate is also climbing. So there's room for more things coming up. MTN is rolling out their 5G. So we are seeing these things beginning to like come into play, and many companies too are, you know, working towards building back-end infrastructure for the ecosystem as well. And so, in my opinion, I think the problems are actually the opportunity. So where there are no infrastructures, some startups actually create the infrastructure as a service to support the ecosystem, and in turn, they too also get rewarded for that. So it's the lack of those infrastructure is also giving reason for more ideas and more startups and companies to come in on the scene to fill that gap and provide the support that you know, helps the ecosystem grow.
So we're going into 2023. It's going to be an election year. Everybody's going to be on the phone or whatever it is and all of that. So all of that, we're seeing the social media play and the tech sector. What's your take for next year?
Oh, I'm super excited about what we're seeing and the kind of companies that are coming on the scene. You know, there's more attention being spread across the board. EdTech is also getting attention, and there's so many aspiring founders, people trying to build things currently, and there's definitely, looking at the amount of funding that's coming from 2020, 2021, 2022. We know 2023 is going to be like a whole different game changer. And I mean, my fingers are crossed, but I definitely see like lots of opportunities that, you know, anybody willing to like tackle real problems and engage the marketplace can leverage and actually grow great things that, you know, we can take out to the world too, from Nigeria here.
Well, I'm also super excited about next year. Thank you so much for your time this morning, and enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend.